Ayo, what's going on everyone? Nathan here. So this right here to my right is the 14-inch MacBook Pro that was released in 2021, and after having it for about a month now and using it very extensively every single day, this device is what every laptop should strive to be in 2022. So the specific model that I have is the 14-inch base model of the MacBook Pro, and this has the M1 Pro chip inside of it. And so this originally started at a price tag of $2,000, but it is now since on sale for $1,799, so you can save about $200 for this. This price drop also makes it even that much more competitive towards the M2 13-inch MacBook Pro that was just released. And it makes it even harder of a recommend to get the M2 version when a laptop this great is out for just a couple $100 more. So even though the M2 chip is now being sold in specific Apple products, the M1 Pro chip is still more powerful, and this chip will give you an 8-core CPU, a 14-core GPU, a 16-core neural engine, 16 gigabytes of unified memory or RAM, and 512 gigabytes of internal storage. So the M1 Pro chip has been working extremely well for me and has been able to almost take everything that I've thrown at it. So I pretty much use my laptop for like media consumption, browsing the web, and then working on my videos, which comprises of using Final Cut Pro 10. And this thing has been able to take everything like a champ, except for a couple like very specific instances, and I'm not too sure why that is. There's been a couple times where I'll be using like Final Cut Pro 10, and then out of nowhere, like it'll just start to like skip frames and need to process and render the footage. I have background render off, and I'm only filming with 1080p footage, so it's not in 4K yet, and there weren't any LUTs on it, and it was only 2 layers of video, so I don't really know what's going on there. It's happened to me twice so far, but besides those little hiccups, like it's been running perfectly smooth and really don't have anything to complain about the power with this M1 Pro chip. So for the first time in years, Apple finally had a redesign to their MacBook Pros, and this was long overdue. The redesign comes with a slightly more boxy silhouette, but funny enough, it's not actually any thicker than the clamshell design of the older models at their thickest points. This laptop has a height of 0.61 inches, a width of 12.31 inches, and a depth of 8.71 inches, and weighs 3.5 pounds or 1.6 kilograms. The new design also has higher raised feet, which are more flat compared to the convex ones they used to use on the older generations. And Apple has also moved the MacBook Pro logo from the bottom of the internal display and engraved it now on the bottom of the entire device. And I like this, as now the display itself looks a little more clean, and then the bottom, it just feels like a little more higher end because it's engraved and not just like a print on it. The 2021 MacBook Pros finally have MagSafe again, and this comes in the form of their MagSafe 3 ports. This is such a great charging cable, as it will prevent your laptop from being thrown off a table if you accidentally step on the cable while it's charging, and it also magnetically snaps into place for super ease of use. You can choose between 2 different size USB-C charging bricks, either a 67 watt or a 96 watt for even faster charging, but this laptop does support fast charging with the bricks, and with this you can get 50% battery recharged in just 30 minutes of charging, so great battery life and recharging capabilities on this laptop. So with the battery life, Apple claims that you'll be able to get 17 hours on a single charge, and this is great for any laptop in 2022. So right below the MagSafe 3 port are 2 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, and then below that is a 3.5mm headphone jack, which also supports high impedance audio. And then coming over to the other side of the laptop, there's an HDMI port, another USB-C Thunderbolt 4 port, and then an SD/XD card slot. So I'm so glad that Apple decided to give us our ports back, as the past generations just had either like 2 or 1 USB-C port, and so it just caused everyone to go buy dongles, and it was just such a hassle to always have a dongle with you. It looked ugly and just not the most productive thing, so I'm so glad that Apple, again, like adding thickness to this laptop, was now able to give us back our ports. I'm always going to be using the SD card slot reader from transferring videos and photos from my computer to that, and it's so nice not having to have a dongle. And what's great is that it now also just frees up your 3 USB-C ports. And it just seems like having all these ports really just adds to the functionality of this laptop. So now you can charge with its MagSafe port. You can have an external display hooked up to one of the USB-C ports, have a dongle out another USB-C port, and then you can still have room for an HDMI to plug up to a TV. So what's great about the 3 USB-C ports as well is that with the M1 Pro chip, you can power 2 external 6K monitors and an additional 4K TV. And if you have the M1 Max chip, then you get 3 6K monitors. And it's just such a powerful laptop to be able to support all of those externals. So you can use this as like a home hub for a great desk setup. So moving over to the display of the laptop, this is another area where Apple hit it out of the park with, and I think this display is gorgeous. This has a 14.2-inch Liquid Retina XDR display with a resolution of 3024 by 1964 and has 254 pixels per inch. The XDR stands for Extreme Dynamic Range and allows for a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio. This has XDR brightness at 1000 nits and 1600 nits at peak brightness while viewing HDR content, but still maintaining 500 nits with SDR video footage. This display also has True Tone technology and P3 wide color gamut. Another long overdue feature that many Apple enthusiasts were asking for is to have 120 Hz in these displays, and Apple finally did that with their ProMotion technology. This gives the laptops adaptive refresh rates, which will automatically adjust based on what you're doing on the screen to give you the best feel and also preserve battery life. So for example, if you're just sitting down like scrolling through the internet, then it might just sit at 60 Hz for you where you don't need the 120. But if you're gaming on it or if you're doing something more intensive, then it'll just automatically kick it up to the full 120 Hz and it just looks buttery smooth. But if you don't need that, then it can even drop it below 60 and it will just save you battery life in the end. So the ProMotion technology is a huge win for me with this laptop. So yes, we have to address the elephant in the room. There is a notch on this display, but trust me, it's not the worst thing in the world. In most applications, there are never any control functions in the top middle of the screen anyway, so it won't get in the way of anything. And it just kind of blends in over time, similar to how the iPhone notch just blends in. You really don't notice it when you're using it that much. So then also in the notch is an upgraded 1080p front-facing camera, and this was much needed over the old 720p. That was so outdated and looked bad, so now the front-facing camera is actually usable, I would say. So now moving on to the keyboard of this device, I love its keyboard. This has a backlit Magic Keyboard, and one of the most noticeable things about this from the previous generation is that it doesn't have the touch bar anymore. Instead, it has a full row of function keys, and the only function key I wish it did have was a keyboard brightness adjustment, but you can find this in the control center at the top right, so it's not too far out of the way. So instead of Face ID, Apple opted for Touch ID, and this is found at the top right of the keyboard. And I really like this version over the previous one, as now it has like a little engraved circle, so you can really find the exact spot where you need to put your finger to unlock your device. Another subtle difference is that right behind the keyboard, it is now all black instead of the same aluminum color on the previous models. I like this. It kind of separates the keyboard from the laptop itself, and I think it makes the numbers pop and the letters pop inside of the fonts even more so. And then thankfully, Apple still has the same large Force Touch trackpad at the bottom as it did in the previous years. Apple's leading the industry right now in their trackpads, and this thing feels amazing from its responsiveness to the haptics in it and just how large it is. I love this trackpad, and I thought my Surface Book 2 had a great one, but it doesn't even come close to this one, so I'm so glad that they kept it exactly the same. So now moving on to the speakers of this laptop, I think Apple did a great job in upgrading these as well over the previous year. This now has 6 high-fidelity speakers with force-canceling woofers and has support for spatial audio. There is a surprising amount of bass, and noticeably it sounds more wide. I compared this with my little brother's 2021 version, and I just noticed how they both do sound good. It's just for some reason it sounds a little wider and a little more full, and I really do like that about these speakers. So again, for what they are, laptop speakers, I think Apple really did a great job with this. So through and through, this laptop is one of the best products that I've ever owned, and it really has me excited for where Apple's silicon is going to take them in the future. I really do think that this is what all laptops should strive to be, as it really doesn't lack in any category. And I know for all this functionality and power, you are paying a lot of money for it. But now since it's on sale for $200 less, it's even that much more competitive. And I really think that if you're someone who's considering buying the M2, then just save up the couple extra $100 and get the base version of the 14-inch. From this laptop's display to its keyboard, trackpad, its port selection, functionality, and power, I highly recommend anyone who's in the professional or creative marketplace with a laptop to go pick one of these up, as you won't be let down. If you're more so just looking for something for school to take notes on, then go with the MacBook Air, the new M2 one. That thing looks great. It has a more updated design like these MacBook Pros. Whatever you do, I do not recommend the 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro. Just skip that one. But again, professionals, you can't go wrong with this laptop. This thing's amazing. So that's gonna be it for the video. If you enjoyed it, or if you learned something new, then please don't forget to hit the like button down below and subscribe. And with that being said, have a great day, everyone, and cheers.